magnificent and wonderful this morning. It is so good to have you here. And just to give you a little bit of background in terms of what we're doing, because some of you who were at the forum last week maybe didn't get the memo during the course of the week, we're shifting a little bit in terms of our service and bringing us into a place of oneness in the beginning of the service. And then from there, we're building into that place of joy so that we can then do some sharing and some laughing and some connecting as the service unfolds. But as we know in this teaching, that the concept of knowing the truth of who and what we are begins from that place of peace and love and centeredness from within ourselves. So I invite you to be in that place as we begin the service in that manner. And I also welcome your feedback. Of course, I may be sorry in saying that, but nevertheless, share with me what your thoughts are and anything that we can do, because all of us, Reverend Liza, my assistant minister, and Reverend Mel, Reverend Dodie, Reverend Aaron, Reverend Harry, who did I miss? Reverend Monica, thank you. All of our ministers, they all have their own ministries that they work on, but each and every one of us is very, very dedicated to serving you, our congregation. We want to do what inspires you, what uplifts you, what allows you to walk the walk and talk the talk when you move out of here every Sunday and take it on into the week. So I welcome you. I'm very, very glad you're here. And as I said, nothing is ever in stone. We continue to evolve. We're Circle's flexible edge. So this morning, my talk is called How to Teach Love. And I want to begin that with a story about the rabbi's gift. There was a monastery that had fallen on hard times. And the monks were very dejected about that particular situation that they found themselves in. It was a result of declining interest in the monkhood, secularism, lots of things were happening, and just in general, people were not very interested in this monastery anymore. It used to be a very vibrant place, a very wonderful place where lots of people used to come and share and be. And so they kind of thought of themselves as a dying order and weren't happy about that. Well, deep in the woods, fairly near the monastery, there was a home, a hermitage actually, where a rabbi used to come and spend time, meditate, and do his work, and he was considered to be a very, very wise man. So the monks in the monastery thought that perhaps they would talk to the rabbi. The next time they saw the rabbi in his hermitage, they would, maybe have a conversation. Maybe he had some ideas, some wisdom about what to do about their dying order. So one day, one of the monks saw some smoke billowing out of the chimney of the hermitage, and the father, who was the abbot of the monastery, said, "I'm going over to see the rabbi." So he went over, and they had a wonderful conversation. They had tea together, and they talked all about all kinds of things. And the abbot said to the rabbi, "I don't know what to do. We feel as though we're a dying order. Do you have any advice for me? Anything at all that I can bring back to the other monks?" And so the rabbi said, "Well," he said, "no." He said, I don't really have any advice to give you. I know it's a very sad thing. I mean, this is happening all over in lots of other religions." And he said, it's really, really difficult to give you an answer. And he said, I can't think of anything. So the abbot started to go away, and the rabbi called out to him, and he said, he said, "One thing I do know." He said, "The Messiah is among you." And the abbot thought, "Oh, this is a very, very interesting thing. I wonder what that means." So he went back to the monastery and shared this with the other monks, and said, "This is a very, very strange thing." That the rabbi said that he didn't have much advice, but he did share this one thing, that the Messiah was among us. And so all of the monks began to ponder this thought, and they thought about it, and after a while, some of the monks said, "Well, do you suppose the Messiah is the abbot? After all, he's such a good leader. Perhaps he is the Messiah. I don't know, maybe. On the other hand, it could be Brother Thomas, because Brother Thomas is such a loving man. He's always loving. He's always doing helpful things for people. Yes, it's Brother Thomas, because he's such a holy man. Well, certainly he couldn't have meant Brother Eldred, because Eldred is such a crotchety old guy. It couldn't possibly be Brother Eldred, because he's always complaining. But, oh my goodness, what if it is? What if it is Brother Eldred? Oh, but surely it couldn't be Brother Philip. Oh, he's passive. He's a nobody. He just kind of blends into the scenery. Uh-oh, what if it is Philip? Uh-oh. Well, of course, all the monks just about at the same time thought to themselves, oh, what if it's me? What if I am the Messiah? Well, what happened is that over the course of time, every one of the monks began to treat each other with extraordinary respect and love. They began to think about each other in loving ways and to help one another out. It was a wonderful experience because every one of them thought maybe the other was the Messiah, maybe they were the Messiah, and every individual became one who was treated just like God. What resulted is people began to feel this new energy being expressed around the monastery, and families started taking walks through the forests and visiting. And young men, too bad it wasn't young women too, they don't accept women yet, but many young men began to join the monastery and began to get involved, and they recruited lots of new monks, and the monastery became a center of light in the community. Very interesting. So, the rabbi's gift is really about the unsaid word, the unsaid idea that lead us to the realization, even though we might be tricked into believing, into thinking, into maybe even just considering that perhaps there might be this light, this divinity, this sense of perfection and wholeness within each of us and within every other person that we know. So what's really happening here is this idea is telling us that it is us that by our own actions, we're actually teaching other people how to recognize the divinity within themselves and to recognize the divinity within other people. It's an awesome realization, but it's the realization that in order to teach love, we have to be love. We have to be all of the attributes of love as we express ourselves in the world. So the first question, perhaps, that we ask ourselves, and you know how fond I am of questions, is to ask ourselves, why is it then that when I have the intention to teach love, that I may not get the results that I'm after? Because I think we do that, don't we? We often find that we are having the intention, wanting to kind of, teach that sense of love to other people, but somehow the results just don't show up the way that we expect them to. And generally speaking, not all the time, but most of the time, these revolve around relationship issues. Things where we're having a little difficulty with our partners, our spouse, or our coworkers, or our best friends. Generally speaking, it is about the people who are closest to us, and that is because we care the most about them. So I guess we have to ask the question on top of that, why do we do this to each other? It's a really interesting question, because this is all about being love and teaching love. So perhaps what's happening is we're listening to the wrong voice. We may not know it, we may not be conscious of it, maybe not intending to do so, but maybe we're listening to the wrong voice. The voice of the ego that says, I am right. The voice of the ego that says, I need to have the upper hand in this relationship or in this conversation or in this situation. Or the voice that says, I need to be in control. Or the voice that says, I need to prove something. And those voices are the natural reactions of our human ego mind. They just are. And so how do we work with that? How do we deal with that? Because when we listen to the voice of the ego, what it does is it leads us further into conflict. So when we listen to the voice of spirit, the voice of love from within us, it tells us different things. These are really, really important messages. And I think what's really important is for us to know that we don't have to listen to the voice of ego, that we can quiet that voice. And we can pretend there are two dials. This is like the radio of the voice that we need to hear. Turn down the voice of the ego, because it's still going to be there. We're never going to get rid of it completely. It's always going to be there, doing its little thing. But turn up the volume on the voice of heart, on the voice of spirit. Because what that voice says, when we listen to that voice, this is what we hear. You cannot be attacked. You cannot be attacked. It also says you are safe. Because oftentimes when we're in that conflict kind of situation, we feel fearful. And when we're in that place of fear, we lash out. So we have to know in reality, we're safe. And to realize that our reality is love, that that's who we are, that is so much bigger and so much more powerful than any other emotion that we can possibly feel. And the voice of spirit, the voice of heart, always says, look to the bigger picture. Look to the bigger picture. And the way we recognize the voice of spirit, the voice of heart, is that it's always gentle. It's a gentle voice. It's a voice that speaks with such care and such love. It's a voice that really, really connects with that sense of who we are. It's authentic. It's the presence of God in us, wanting to communicate with itself, which is you, itself. When we speak to another, we're really speaking to ourselves. Care, love, gentleness. It's always peaceful. It's a peaceful voice, and it's always a peaceful, harmonious experience. See, the ego rejects these intentions sometimes. You know why? Because the ego thinks that it's not powerful enough. It thinks that there's not enough zing in this. There's not enough punch in this. And so I gotta make my voice heard. I gotta say what I gotta say and get it out like I gotta get it out. But we have to know that that idea is something that is coming out of the ego. And that the powerful voice of love is greater, bigger, and everlasting. Everlasting. So the bottom line remains, do I want to be right or do I want to be in love? Do I want to be right or do I want to be in love? So when each of us makes that decision to choose love over power or control or greed, we're teaching love. And when we teach love, we learn love. Dr. Wayne Dyer based all of his material on that, the seven Habits of Highly Effective People. He said, the only way you'll learn this is to teach it. And so that's our job, to teach love. To be like the abbots in the monastery, or the monks and the abbot in the monastery, to be able to teach that amazing presence of love within us. And so as we align ourselves with that harmonious energy, we step into a dance with the divine. It carries us through. But there's another concept I want to share with you about teaching love, and that is that when these questions are asked, when the ego is challenged, because it's a difficult process to move through that, to deny some of those voices, because some of these things represent to us who we think we are. They represent our identity. They represent our presence. It's like if we let that go, who would we be? Our whole personality would just disappear. We have to know that there's a deeper, more powerful, more present identity of who we are, and that presence is love, and that we can bring it forth in another way. So when we have those questions that challenge our ego, we can answer them in another way. When questions are asked like, why did you do that to me? And even if we don't say it to the person, oh, believe me, we say it at home in the shower. Why did they do that to me? And, over and over again. Then we ask the question, why is this happening? Why is it always happening to me? You hear those words, always happening to me? Hey, and I'm not separating myself from you. I do this. We all do this. It is our human tendency to have these types of questions going on because it's our immediate ego reaction. And then the final question is, why me? Why me? And what we can do one simple thing when we hear those questions. We can turn the why into how. And if you don't take anything else with you this week, take this idea. Turn why into how. In other words, when we hear those questions, come back with the answer, or the question to the answer, to the question, to the question. Whatever it is. How can I resolve this? Not why is it happening, but how can I resolve this? What is the pathway to resolution? What is the pathway out of this conflict? What is the pathway? How can I create a situation that allows me to experience a sense of peace and love and happiness? How can I move forward? Because every time we spend time in those other questions about why, we go backwards. We step back into that place of pity and awfulness and ugh, and how can I move forward? How? And how can I see my role in this? This is a very clear part of this teaching, part of the science of mind. What is my role in this? How can I see a new role for me in this? Because what this gives us is taking responsibility. And when we take responsibility for something, we have power. Our power comes back. All of a sudden, we have control over the situation rather than letting the situation have control over us. So we say, well, how can I see my role in this? What can I do? It was such a very small example of this morning, but it was like, Ingeborg was talking to me about the meditation service after, and she said, I have some ideas about the meditation service. And she was talking about the signs on the door, and I said, then that's your role. She had a wonderful idea. And you see, that was a positive, practical thing that she could do to enhance something. Instead of saying, why did that happen? Why were people walking? Whatever. She didn't. She said, how? How can I resolve this? And that's how. So it's a wonderful switch in our own psyche that just gives us a sense of empowerment, allowing ourselves to take responsibility for something rather than waiting for something to just happen to us. Because immediately when we do that, the mind becomes peaceful. And we're in the flow again. We're in that sense of feeling and knowing that love is the primary force, not the other emotions, but love is the primary force. The power comes from within, and that power is the power of the divine. And it is our gift to be able to teach love. And it's always an option. It's always a choice. It's always a choice. What will you choose? I want to close today with a poem that I found, again, from somewhere. I keep discovering these beautiful things. I wish I could give credit to whoever wrote it, but it just said anonymous. Light that lies deep inside of me, come forth in all thy majesty. Show me thy gaze, teach me thy ways, that I a better person may be. Darkness that lies deep inside of me, come forth in all thy mystery. Show me thy gaze, teach me thy ways, that I a better person may be. Love that lies deep inside of me, come forth in all thy unity. Let me be thy gaze. Let me teach thy ways, that I a better person may be. And I don't want to apologize for feeling emotional about this, but for whatever reason, it's touching me deep inside. There's something that's really, I can't even explain why, I don't even know exactly what it is, but there's something really, really important. Some essence of this idea that's touching me deeply. And I hope it is for you as well. I hope that somehow there's something in this that allows you to feel that sense of empowerment, that sense of knowing that we always have a choice, that we always have the privilege, the honor to teach love to one another, to teach love in the streets, in the supermarkets, in the theaters, wherever we are. We have the honor and the privilege to teach love, because that is who we are. Thank you so much for being who you are.